Picture a world where Vince Masuka, famous for his odd jokes and unique charm, always knew Dexter Morgan was a serial killer. Sounds crazy, right? But piecing together what we know about Masuka, it starts to make sense. By the end of this video, you'll see the evidence suggesting that Masuka knew far more than he ever let on. And you might just find yourself asking, how much did Masuka really know? If you've seen the show, you likely think of Vince Masuka as a forensic scientist who struggles in social situations. He often tells inappropriate jokes that some find creepy when he just tries to lighten the mood.
You can also be completely revolting, and sometimes that's all people say.
But Vince Masuka is a lot more than just a comic relief. He's the backbone of Miami Metro, a highly skilled forensic scientist capable of solving the most complex cases. He was often praised for his analytical mind and extreme attention to detail in the lab.
He's our lead forensic investigator, and there's no one better.
But why does this matter, you might be asking? With his expertise in DNA, trace evidence, and crime scene reconstruction, it's hard to imagine that a brilliant scientist like himself missed the fact that his daily co-worker was a serial killer. We know that Dexter not only manipulated evidence, but also had a knack for finding key information that others overlooked. Although Dexter was the blood spatter expert, Masuka also played a key role in processing evidence. He helped ensure forensic accuracy. There were moments when he made mistakes that Dexter corrected. Were these genuine mistakes, or was Dexter guiding him away from anything that could reveal the truth? The big question is, could someone with Masuka's expertise really have overlooked these signs? One of the clearest signs he overlooked happened during the department's most significant case, the Bay Harbor Butcher investigation, where Masuka played a crucial role. One key breakthrough in the case was when Masuka studied diatoms from algae found on the bodies, which led the FBI to the harbor where Dexter dumped his victims. This was a major forensic discovery, and Masuka himself analyzed the bags pulled from the ocean. He even remarked on the surgical precision of the dismemberments.
State-of-the-art, fucking FBI, eh?
Yet Masuka never linked the butcher's skill in surgical precision to Dexter. I mean, think about it. Masuka worked in the same lab as Dexter. He saw Dexter's work every day, making it hard to believe Masuka never noticed how closely Dexter's work mirrored the Bay Harbor Butcher's. Yet once the investigations pointed to Dokes, Masuka accepted it. He didn't ask any further questions, just like everyone else at Miami Metro. But was this because he truly believed Dokes was the real killer, or was there any lingering doubt in his mind? Whether or not Masuka had doubts about Dokes, this wasn't the only time he seemed to overlook suspicious activities. Throughout the series, Masuka never seems to question Dexter's crime scene work, even when some of his findings are oddly convenient, insights that went beyond normal deduction.
And you don't do that unless you have a close personal relationship with someone. Probably an ex-boyfriend. That's who I'd look for.
Okay.
Since he's such a skilled forensic scientist, shouldn't he have noticed this pattern of lucky guesses? The evidence suggests he might have, but instead of confronting Dexter directly, he may have communicated his suspicions in a more subtle way. We see how in Season 1, Masuka makes what seems to be your typical Masuka joke. He jokingly calls Dexter a blood fetishist, a seemingly harmless joke, but the joke might have been deeper than what the viewer thinks. In the series, Masuka often makes inappropriate jokes. He used humor as a way of sharing uncomfortable truths or risky observations that could have been too dangerous to express plainly.
The boss's watermelons look bigger on TV.
The operative word is boss. Show some respect.
Thought I was.
Hiding behind a joke allowed him to raise concerns about Dexter without directly accusing him or bringing unwanted attention to himself. Masuka jokingly expressing how Dexter seemed to have a strange liking for blood could have been his way of confronting Dexter about something he noticed, masking it with a joke. The timing is also significant. This comment happened in Season 1. At the time, many other characters had not yet noticed anything odd about Dexter. Masuka noticed warning signs early on. This suggests he might have pieced together the truth over time. But if Masuka had pieced together the truth, why did he never speak up? As a scientist, Masuka relied on concrete evidence, and Dexter was careful never to leave any. Even if Masuka had noticed inconsistencies without solid proof, he might have simply brushed them off, whether it was out of the respect Masuka had for Dexter, their friendship, or that he simply didn't want to accept something so terrible about someone he cared for. Masuka never acted on his suspicions. Masuka's personality also plays a big role in the theory.
Yeah, well, I like to celebrate the little things in life.
Hey, if you like little things, I'm your man. I mean, I'm not little everywhere. Some places I'm just perfectly average.
His twisted humor, often centered around sexual activities and death, could be more than just regular jokes. It might have been his coping mechanism. Working with crime scenes and brutal murders every day could have been tough on the mind. This raises deeper questions about Masuka's psychology. Was his crude, carefree persona a way of coping with the darkness he faced? If he ever had doubts about Dexter, did he choose to push them aside to avoid facing the uncomfortable truth? So, why did Masuka stay silent? Was he afraid, or was there something deeper going on? Let's take a moment to really think about Vince Masuka, not just as Miami Metro's comic relief, but as a person. Masuka's humor wasn't just a quirk, it was his armor. Behind the crude jokes and over-the-top personality, there was a deeply insecure man. In a workplace with confident colleagues like Dexter Morgan and Angel Batista, both heroes in the police force, Masuka often felt out of place. He admired them and wanted respect, but more than that, he craved connection. In a job where relationships rarely go beyond the office, loneliness was inevitable. His friendship with Dexter may have meant more to him than we realize, and he feared losing it. Masuka may have had other reasons for not speaking up, aside from his friendship with Dexter. As we already mentioned, Vince Masuka is an analytical guy. If he really had figured out early on that his closest colleague was a killer, would he have spoken up? We know that Masuka only acts on concrete evidence, not speculations and beliefs. This raises an important question for us to consider. Put yourself in Masuka's shoes for a moment. Would you have spoken up? And if you did, what would be the consequences? If Masuka really knew Dexter was a killer, what stopped him from ending up on Dexter's kill table for trying to expose him? As we know from the series, anyone who endangered Dexter's code had to be taken out to keep the secret safe. But fear wasn't the only reason he was held back. Looking at the bigger picture, trying to expose Dexter could not only damage Miami Metro's reputation, but it might also have ruined Masuka's career. It's a serious claim to say that a supposed good guy works as a blood spatter analyst by day, but kills at night. Without clear evidence, Masuka could have faced serious consequences for trying to frame an apparently innocent colleague, potentially ruining both his career and his life. Masuka likely weighed the risks and benefits. He may have decided that staying quiet was the smarter move. Another possible reason Masuka never decided to speak up is because he agreed with Dexter's code and his way of killing. He may have viewed Dexter as a necessary evil who took out dangerous criminals that the justice system couldn't handle. Daily, Masuka analyzed the crimes of Miami's worst monsters, killers, predators, and those who got away with it. So who could blame him for wanting to see them under the jail? So what does all this evidence tell us about the true Vince Masuka? When we look at the full picture, it becomes obvious that he goes beyond just being Miami Metro's comic relief. He's a talented forensic expert with a sharp and strategic mind. His greatest strength may not be his lab skills, but his ability to see the truth and choose silence. If Masuka did know about Dexter, his silence wasn't simply him being a coward or choosing to ignore it. He may have used this as a survival strategy. By keeping Dexter's secret, he shielded himself and maintained Miami Metro's good name. This also allowed a kind of justice to persist in a city where the system often failed. While we can't be certain Masuka knew about Dexter, the evidence from his expertise and observations makes a compelling case that he might have. Behind those crude jokes, there could be a man who understood much more than he showed. Perhaps that makes him not just a survivor, but in his own way, one of the most fascinating characters in Dexter's world.